Viewing myself as worth all the effort that everybody else is worth.
I feel like happiness has really been conceptualized in our society through a very white lens.
I feel like I had the voice of every immigrant, like mother and father in my brain.
Yes, guess I'm gonna strive for the impossible every fucking day of the rest of my life because I did it once.
Not scarred me. Well, yes, it did. That was a lie. It did.
There was a tabloid in England that actually linked my Facebook profile, like hyperlinked it to my name.
Oh, wow. That is a loaded question. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you all back listening to our podcast today. My name is Angelica, and I'm here with Inez and a special guest that we are going to introduce very soon. And on this episode, we are going to be discussing finding happiness as women of colour. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are all meeting today, the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation and the Wadamadigal peoples of the Darug Nation, whose lands on which we are recording, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I extend my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners that are listening to us today.
Hello, very exciting. Today's episode is very special because we have a wonderful guest who is very talented and very sweet, and her name is Soaliha.
Hey guys, I'm Soaliha. I also am the host of my own podcast called Here's the Thing Though. I'm a writer, journalist, person. I have a lot of writing. It's so hard introducing myself because I don't like have a very specific like media role to say. I guess I just write. Follow me at Soaliha Official. But yeah, that's me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. We really do appreciate you taking the time out. And just before we get started, I thought we would look at how happiness is actually measured in research, because it's quite interesting because they use it for community organizations and policy just to enhance social justice and community well-being. It's called the Happiness Index, which measures life satisfaction, feelings of happiness, and other happiness domains. So the domains are psychological well-being, so optimism and a sense of purpose, health, so like energy level, time balance, community, like a sense of belonging, social support, education, arts and culture, so the access to cultural and educational events, environment, access to nature, governance, trust in government, material well-being, as well as work. So I just want to go around and ask you guys, what does happiness mean to you?
I feel like just that list of things in general just kind of shows how complex the idea of happiness even is, because I mean, if you're going to go by the list you just went, it isn't just about your personal state of mind, but also the things that you could have access to. Like my knee-jerk response, I guess, in an answer to what happiness is just like contentness, right? For me, it's just like being comfortable, having access to the things that I need to have access to: food, water, entertainment, love, friends, being happy with where I am, wherever that may be. I mean, you can't be happy 24/7, I think. Maybe it's that plus like moments of joy. At the end of the day, for me personally, like happiness is a lot about like the absence of stress and trauma, being able to live in the moment and be comfortable and be loved. I think that's happiness to me.
That's beautiful. That's very
Aw.
sweet.
Yeah.
That is so sweet. What about you, Angelica?
I just echo everything literally that you just said. For me, happiness is a lot of those things. How I've come to define it has changed over the years. I definitely really resonate with the fact that happiness is a combination of different things. It's complex, not just state of your psychological well-being. It's also what's functioning around you in society and what impact that has on you, how your ability to be able to navigate through those things and your feeling and of contentment just with your life at different stages. For me, it's a blend of different things. Contentment is one of the areas that I think about when I think of like, oh, what makes me happy? Seeing my family like flourishing. And then I feel content with life. If I see them just with a smile on their face and going well, it doesn't have to be me having a whole pool of money just appear randomly in my account. Like measuring happiness is so hard. I feel like happiness has really been conceptualized in our society through a very white lens.
Don't forget the capitalist lens as well.
Exactly.
Bingo.
Happiness is hustle, apparently.
Yeah.
I was literally just about to say that, like, gotta like continuously like push and continuously strive and hustle. And if you're not doing that, then you can never really be truly happy with like your life. That narrative is constantly pushed down our throats. And I feel like I've come to a place to really recognize that. I do sometimes look at myself and the thoughts that I have, and I do feed back into that narrative that's been pushed onto me. I get into this space of like, okay, the only way that I can be happy is if I push myself to the limits here. I don't really think that that's a good way to see happiness. You know, at the same time, like it's like I said, it changes. That's my thoughts on happiness. What about you, Inez?
Just reflecting on what you both have said, I think before I preface what I'm about to say, isn't it just unbelievably insane that we have to earn a living? Like, even that phrase, we have to earn a living, as if we wouldn't have been worth living unless we have to work and earn for it, which is very strange. And a lot of the things that bring me happiness, particularly since like I've come from poverty and I've been homeless before, the way I viewed happiness then was like just stability. I just needed stability and that was it. And like that is somehow happiness. But now that I do have that, I just want joy. I think maybe when I was like in such a struggle state, I didn't even have time to conceptualize what happiness was. I just wanted to be stable, and then happy was like a little bit of a bonus. I really want happiness to be joy only, but I don't think it is. I think it's also stability and comfort, self-love as well, which is really hard place to get to, because how are you supposed to love yourself in a world that is hates you? But yeah, I think that's probably the next question. How do you find happiness within yourself? Is that even possible in the system that we're in?
Oh, wow. That is a loaded question, especially being a Black woman. I've only really come to love myself like the past 2 years. And I don't even really know if I'm really there with self-love. I don't like using hate sometimes, but like I hate about myself that comes from internalized racism that I have, but also just what society is constantly pushing onto me in this capitalist world that we're living in. Self-love as a Black woman, when you're constantly put at the bottom, it takes a massive toll on you. Finding the spaces where you're safe as a Black woman is incredibly hard. The only reason why I've only come to really properly love myself is because I've been able to find some spaces of my people that are where we can dialogue about the struggles that we're going through. That's why there's that constant like up and down with this whole self-love thing. Sometimes I even get to a point of thinking, is self-love even real? Can it actually be truly achieved? I don't see it being something that I can fully get to if the society doesn't change, if the systems and structures don't change, if they don't become anti-racist and not rooted in like just the injustice against like people of color. When I have that thought about like self-love not being something I can ever attain, I start to get really sad. I'm like, what a fucked up world, like what a fucked up world we live in, that like people like me and you guys have to even think that idea. But at the same time, I'm optimistic that I can get there within this journey of trying to love myself, seeing that my Blackness adds a lot to me and my experiences. I'm blessed with the experiences that I do have, and I find lots of joy in being in my identity. You know, in high school, that was like a totally different thing. I was out here bleaching my skin, perm my hair, so it was like straight. Take anything that was visibly Black about me away. And that's where I was finding my happiness, and that's where I thought self-love would be achieved. Now it's the complete opposite. Get out there, have my fro. Like I had my damn bonnet on in the shop. This to me is happiness. But like I'm happy with myself and I'm happy with how I want to rock myself as a Black woman. Like in the workspace or what I'm trying to achieve in like my career. Like I just feel like proper happiness in that is so far away just because we are so disadvantaged. It's not actually up to us as people of color to change that.
I actually really vibed with a lot of what you guys just said. Before we get into that, I just want to mention, Inez, what you were just saying earlier about when you're struggling financially, like you can't even imagine real happiness because happiness is survival. I really vibe with that because I am in a similar situation. Like I grew up quite financially disadvantaged. You know, sometimes there wasn't food on the table. Funnily enough, the opposite to you in that way, because I wasn't old enough to really understand financial stability. Like I was like young, like, 10 or under 10. So for me, happiness was joy, right? And then as I got older, happiness actually became stability and contentment. Because I think I had a lot of joy as a kid, despite being quite financially disadvantaged. I never like didn't have fun or anything like that. I had lots of siblings and cousins I used to hang out with a lot. And that was my idea of happiness as a child, was just joy, it was just fun. The other day I was at my partner's house. We weren't like spending time together. He was like studying and I was just like tidying up and like watching a movie and just like doing my own thing. And I had this like a moment of clarity where I was like, I think this is actually happiness for me. Like it's not necessarily joy. I'm so comfortable right now. And I think for somebody who's always a little bit uncomfortable, like I'm always a little bit unsure, I'm always a little bit anxious, I'm never really very comfortable in any situation, and I'm constantly overthinking everything. And I feel like I wanted to mention that because then going into now with like self-love, and you mentioned earlier, Angelica, about career and how career is just not somewhere where you find self-love. I also feel the same way on that. For somebody who, like, I'm doing all right career-wise, I think. I've been working really hard. I've stopped looking at it as a form of happiness. It's a form of like income. And like happiness is
girl
through
boss.
that.
Girl boss.
Yes,
oh my
exactly.
God.
Exactly. Like happiness is in girl boss culture. Happiness is in success as a woman and beating the odds and blah, blah, blah. And I just don't feel that, because you know what? My job brings me stress. And stress is not happiness to me. To me, like, happiness is the absence of stress, because I'm always stressed. And my goal in life is to not be stressed. Those are essential things that I have to do under a capitalist society to live. And it's like, it's never going to be a form of happiness when it's something necessary that I have to do for survival. It's not something I do for fun. I can have fun while doing it, but it's not something I do for fun. If I didn't need to earn a living, like if I didn't have to make money to survive, I probably wouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean? That it's quite a privileged thing to see your job as a form of happiness, because that's quite rare. I think a lot of us just work to live, and I don't think there's any shame in that. There's really big capitalist myth about like loving your job and choosing a job that you love, and then you'll succeed, you'll never work a day, and like all of that is bullshit, because I do love my job, but it stresses me out, and I'd probably be happy if I just didn't work at all and I could just live and read a book now and then and spend time with my family, like, because that would be real happiness to me. I relate to you a lot, because I used to skin bleach as well in my teen years. I used to wear like a foundation shade that was much lighter than my skin tone. When I figured out how to nose contour, that changed my life for a while.
Oh my God.
A straight nose, love that for me. But, like, you see all your white friends like be happy and succeed, and you're like, I want that, and that seems to be the version of happiness that's being sold to me. So perhaps the way I'm gonna find that happiness is by like mirroring them. And so I spent so much time and effort in my younger years really trying to be as like white, quote unquote, as possible. I even like tried to shift my values into super like Western values, and kind of tried to ditch the collectivist stuff that I grew up with in my ethnic family, because I mean, everybody else is doing that and they're like successful and happy. And that's the idea that's being sold, to follow your dreams, blah, blah, blah. All the shit that white people say when they know that they have a financial safety net to fall back into so they can pursue their dreams. Self-happiness is really shifted for me. Like now it's just about like taking care of myself, because I think also as a woman of color, I can find that really hard. I think a lot of women of color really struggle, and just women in general are not very good at prioritizing our health because of a society that trivializes our health. You know, a lot of us have had experiences where we go to a doctor and then we're not taken seriously or something is wrong. And so we just learn because of that to not take ourselves seriously. And I'm really bad at like prioritizing my health, prioritizing my mental well-being. Like I will stretch myself thin. So for me, like I pursue stability to the point where it's maybe a bit self-destructive. Self-love for me has started to be taking care of myself. It's not just about loving my skin and my features, although that's definitely a huge part of it. Somewhere I think I got there maybe a year or two ago. Like I really got to a place where I'm not worried about being brown. Like I'm not scared of it anymore, and I'm not embarrassed or ashamed, and I don't give a shit anymore, which is really nice. So I've moved past like the bottom tier, which is like being okay with what I look like, and now I'm at a more meaningful, I think, level of self-acceptance and self-love, where like I'm trying to develop the ability to like really put myself first, because I really struggle to do that quite a lot. I often feel like I have to earn my relationship, I have to earn love, I have to earn a living, I have to earn the right to even like take care of myself, I have to earn my doctor's appointment, I'm not unwell enough yet, I gotta suffer a little bit more and then I gotta go. And this is
Yeah.
weird, like, I feel like I really put myself in situations of suffering so unnecessarily, but I don't think it's internalized self-hate. I just think it's a product of existing in a society that tells you you're not really worth a lot, and that you have to earn things because you're not worth anything unless you earn it. And like really trying to view myself as like a friend. Like I want to take care of myself the way I take care of my friends, because I put in my, if my friend was feeling how I feel and they told me, I'd be like, bitch, doctor's appointment right now. We're going out to lunch tomorrow. I'm going to buy you this. Let's go on a holiday. Like, here's all the things I'm going to do to make you feel better. And I just like don't
Yeah.
really extend that to myself very often, and viewing myself as worth all the effort that everybody else is worth.
Everything everybody's saying is so sweet.
I know we're just going to be like emotional after this episode.
Yeah, I'm so like fuzzy and warm inside. It's so cute. Yeah, similarly, I've always really struggled with it. I don't really even know most days who I am. What is the
Yeah.
self? Hashtag philosopher is in the building. But I was like, who am I that I would be deserving of constant love? Because I feel like I'm always changing. Myself always changes. So I feel like I have like a core set of beliefs and like a persona that I think, okay, this person is worth loving. But if I step outside of that, I feel like, oh, what's going on there? Maybe not. Maybe not today. I feel like I just have to accept the fact that I'm constantly changing. But I just want to love myself for who I am today. I think a lot of love is just kindness to myself. Try not to beat yourself up over like a one silly thing that you said when you were drunk at a party and like obsess over it 700 times, because that has been me. But I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And then I like message my friend and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he's like, I don't even remember what you said. I have such a critical voice in my head that I really, really need to tone down. And I feel like that's definitely difficult because a lot of my life I've had to be really academic to survive. I was like, I will be smart and then nobody will be mean to me. So you do it out of survival, but then your personality like gets molded into like this hypercritical type A person, and it's awful. It's awful. I just like I hated everything about me. I didn't want to be Indian. I didn't like my body. I feel like I had the voice of every immigrant like mother and father in my brain.
Yeah. Relate.
Oh my
Just
God, yeah.
constantly, I'm just like, oh, so you got 90%? So where's the other 10%, huh? Fucking loser. Like, it's just so intense. It's so intense up there. And especially during COVID as well. I can't perform at a level that I feel like is, my standard. But there's nothing I can do about that. We're going through a collective hard time. Also, I have mental health issues, so it's hard. I can't jump over this barrier to like just become better. I just have to accept that this is what I am right now, and that's okay. I don't know, maybe I've gone too far because I feel like I have worked on loving myself so much that now I'm just like absurdly arrogant and confident all the time. But I feel like it's in a comedic way. But most of the time, people compliment me and I'm like, yeah, bitch, I know. It's like
That's good though. I feel
That's
like that's
good.
I feel like that's a form of like resistance and rebellion, because like
Yeah.
what you're saying earlier about being like hypercritical of yourself, I really believe that like we as women of color like just hold ourselves to a higher standard than most people hold themselves, and we're much harsher on ourselves than most people are. And I think part of that is because that's how society treats us. You have to be like twice as good as everybody else to get half the recognition. I definitely like feel that way.
yeah.
I imagine you guys do as well, where like we really have to succeed at intense levels. We really have to exceed expectations. We really have to be flying and soaring, and then maybe somebody will notice us. That we just internalize that shit. It's inevitable that we're going to start thinking about ourselves that way and holding ourselves to the highest standard because racist people hold us to those standards. And if that's what you're around all the time and that's what you're told all the time, like inevitably you're going to internalize that. And I feel like that is a real barricade, a real barrier in between women of color and self-love. Is a standard that everybody else holds us to. It's really hard to be content when you're being given impossible standards to reach, and then one day maybe you reach one of those standards and you're like, look, guess it's not impossible. Guess I'm gonna strive for the impossible every fucking day of the rest of my life because I did it once.
Yeah.
Big mood.
Totally relate to that. We've already touched on this, but it's important to note, like, it's totally fine to be excellent. It's the standard that you're striving. Like, what are you actually trying to achieve here? Whose lens are you like really evaluating your excellence through? I don't know why I just wrote it down.
Okay,
Actually,
with notes.
no.
This is prepared.
No, I just like the thought that came into my head was like, I used to see a lot of my happiness through all of the volunteering that I would do. Like all of the like activities that I would do, and I still do. I think around like Feb, like where everything started to like really begin with like COVID and things just started to like stop. I was like, shit. Like I honestly just was lost. I didn't feel happy at all.
Yeah.
Things just completely ended. Like I was like looking for the next thing, to like the next volunteering thing, the next something to add to the list of things that would be able to make people see me as excellent and still doing so well. And like you said, flying, soaring, reaching for fucking Pluto. I just couldn't find those things, even though I was already crippling myself with the amount that I had already on my plate. It's because I just felt like I wasn't happy without doing all of these things at once or achieving this standard of excellence that people hold us to as women of color. And kind of hinted at it and as before, like immigrant parents, their thoughts and their standards of like how they want us to be as well in your mind. And I also started to think about my identity, my culture, how that also impacts me and my happiness too. And so I guess I wanted to ask you guys, how have you defined or seen your happiness or definition of happiness or experiences of happiness change in relation to cultural identity?
I've mentioned in quite a few episodes before that I hated being Indian. I thought that my family represented all of India and the cultures and like the gender inequality and the violence. Is this India? Is this everybody? I don't want anything to do with this. Like, I'm not going to say that it's not. Of course, India has very severe violence and gendered issues. There are also people like me in families and in Australia that care about social justice and want. It's just ridiculous to me that I made all of India into one group that I hated because they were just my family. And it's really sad because I think I lost so many years of my life being really angry and upset and honestly hating myself, and being in white spaces, and me being Indian was just like an icebreaker. Like, it was never really like an important part of my identity. It's only really been this year. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I always knew that like some things that had happened to me were just kind of off. But then reading about like structural inequality, I thought being a woman was my only problem. I was like, once we get to gender equality, it'll be fine. How did I not see this sooner? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm 25 years old and I'm only really now realizing that I'm Indian and that I've been discriminated against. I found Soaliha in a beautiful group chat. And we're just in a group chat of beautiful Southeast Asian women. And especially they're from Australia, and they share a lot of my experiences, and it's so sweet. And I never knew what I was missing until I met all of you, and it sounds so lame.
I feel exactly the same way. I don't really have a lot of like brown female friends in real life. I have a couple, but I see them like once a year for like an hour. So we're not really close. And also I think I maybe struggle to maintain some of those close relationships because we've actually, like, we were friends when we were really young, and a lot of our values have actually they're quite different now. I really vibe with what you're saying, with like feeling like your culture is like bad or backwards or something because of like a select few, and then feeling ashamed to be a part of that because you're not like that, you're like
Yeah.
progressive. I really feel like that with like my Muslim identity, because I obviously know a lot of Muslim people that are quite conservative in ways that I'm not. I had a lot of Muslim friends whose families were quite conservative, much more so than mine. Now as an adult, I can say that that was just their individual parents that just like had some shit to work through and were obviously like problematic and maybe a bit abusive. When you're younger, you're like, it's because they're Muslim. Like they're just strict and mean and awful and abusive because they're Muslim. And I really struggle with that because it's like, but I'm Muslim and they're Muslim and I don't believe this, but they believe this. So do I inherently also believe this? Like, am I what? There are a lot of like identity things that I really had to work through to like realize that actually like random people don't represent my religion. I represent it. I am a good enough representation of my identity to not need it to be validated by anybody else. I don't need to look at other people representing me in a poor manner and think, oh no, what does that say about me? Because it says nothing about me. But like people like often treat you or like your culture is backwards or whatever, because that's something that I dealt with a lot. Other people assuming that I'm going to be in a forced marriage when I grow up and things like that.
Same.
Yeah, ideas around like
Shadi.com.
yeah, bro, that's a meme in my house. My mom, every time I'm annoying her, she's like, shut up, also put your photo on Shadi.com. Like,
Yeah,
it's
for
just a
people who
meme.
don't know, it's a Southeast Asian like arranged marriage website, and Shadi means marriage in Hindi. I made a profile just for like shits and giggles, and it was not fun. Don't do that. Even for a social experiment, don't do that.
Yeah, literally have zero interest in Shadi.com. Say that I really understand the value of then finding like brown friends who are just like you. And that group, I feel you. It like that's how Inez and I became friends. And like it's so valuable because you're so validated. We're all in this together. There's so much love and support. It's just like it's so wholesome. It's so important to like find people like that.
Yeah, super important. Absolutely. Angelica, you said in your in our last episode about friendship that you also had your Nigerian fam and they have like really helped you understand yourself. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that?
A lot of my journey with happiness and being able to love myself as a Black woman comes with the proximity I've had with the Nigerian community. And I've had lots of ups and downs in terms of my connection to the community because of all the different things I went through in life. My mum and my family and I were like quite isolated from the community, the misogyny that does actually exist within my community, sadly. And I think we're getting better, but it's still there. I didn't really find myself leaning more to white people like as a connection point culturally. I found myself leaning more to other POC, and like when I think back to my high school friendships in particular, like there were never really any white people present, and that's just
don't
because
worry, same.
yeah, like I just couldn't relate. When I really came to independent, like with life and just like uni and all that kind of stuff, I really found my cultural community again and just connecting back with that. However, there's still definitely some struggles because of the fact that I was born, raised here, can't speak the language, don't really have those experiences that people may have having lived there and then and coming here. Within the Black community, that can really be something that distances people a lot, and you feel like within your own community you might be labeled as like the white African person, like because you're just like
The
the
whole
one is
coconut thing,
exactly,
brown on
yeah,
the inside, white. Yeah, I know. I get that a lot as well.
legit, yeah, exactly that. I know that I was like raised in this environment, but at the same time I'm still just as Nigerian as you, and it goes back to that spectrum of diversity that exists. Like how come I'm less of a Nigerian just based off the fact that I wasn't in the country, because my experiences are very much similar. What I love now is the fact that I'm even more in love with Africa in general, and that to me is where I like whenever I think about that, like I get so much joy and just that overwhelming feeling of like of happiness come through, because I just picture myself like actually traveling to every single African country one day and experiencing the differences and loving the continent that I'm from. And probably 5 years ago, I would have never thought of that. I am really happy where I'm at and with, you know, the people I am connected to. Like switching gears actually from like the cultural, as in like where I'm from, going back to that point about religion and what you were mentioning before, Solia, like it's been a journey with like my religious identity as well.
Yeah, it's
Being,
definitely a journey.
yeah, like, even now, like I'm always like I am a representation of my religion. Like I don't have to, just because I'm not doing what all the others are doing and trying to be different doesn't make me invalid. To give some context, I'm Christian. That has always been just a source of like strength or kind of spirituality for me, has helped me with being able to connect somewhat to like Nigeria and my culture there. And so like it's been a big part of me, but there's some like we all know like the shit things that, you know, that Christianity as a whole has definitely caused for society. Honestly, been like so like appalled and disgusted by the way that many Christians are homophobic and, you know, don't embrace people of different diversities. And yet I'm like, that's like, it's just shocking to me that you would think that way, but hey, that's you. I'm me, and this is how I take my faith. And but I'm also going to be this person that embraces human rights, embraces like equity, diversity, all of those things. And you can't bring me down for doing that. Coming to that place in my identity has been amazing.
I really love just what you said about feeling a bit lonely in faith because of how the rest of the community, like I find like the concept of that really relatable. Last year I made like worldwide headlines because I was actually denied entry into a bar because of my hijab. So yeah, Inez is like, what? I just saw her
What? I
face.
didn't know this.
Yeah.
In Sydney?
Yeah, in Sydney. You can Google it actually. You
I
can just
think
Google
I
my name and
remember.
it'll come up.
I
Do you remember this?
this.
It's called Paragon Hotel. But it's like literally like right next to Circular Quay Station in Sydney. Probably like 7 p.m. And I had just gone to a climate rally, like a climate protest.
Oh yeah.
And then they were doing like a climate talk, and they had like booked out top of the pub or something to do like a climate talk there. So I was going there for like the climate talk, and you know how they like ID you and stuff. And like the security guard was just like, take that off to my hijab. And I was like, excuse me. And it was pretty fucked. Like it was pretty bad. There's like videos of it online. You can like
Oh
look it up
my
if you want.
God.
Yeah.
So I wrote about what happened to me at work, and it just like it blew up. It went viral. I was interviewed by like Channel 7 and like SBS. The entire Muslim community just like abandoned me and demonized me, and it really like shook and destroyed even my like relationship with like the Muslim kind of diaspora, because like I really thought that I would get like support from the Muslim community, because it was like, yeah, I refused to take off my hijab because obviously I'm not gonna fucking do that. And like I thought people would be like understanding, but I just got like a lot of hate from like a lot of very vocal Muslim people telling me that like I shouldn't have even been there in the first place, and that maybe a security guard not letting me into a pub was actually an act of God so that I couldn't go out and sin, and like stuff like that. And I was getting like death threats and like rape threats. There were Muslim men messaging me being like, if I ever see you, I'm gonna rip that hijab off you. You're misrepresenting Islam. Like, how dare you come out here and be a mouthpiece for our religion? You don't deserve it. I wasn't even trying to like represent the religion. I was just talking about a personal experience I had where I was not let into a bar over like a hijab. There were also like supportive Muslims, loud, angry Muslim people that were in my DMs. And it was really, really, really sad for me. Like I really felt so alienated and abandoned by like the Australian Muslim community. There was a tabloid in England that actually linked my Facebook profile, like hyperlinked it to my name in their article about it.
No,
And
if only you could see me and
so
Angelica's face.
yeah, and so a lot of people were just getting straight into my Facebook DMs from that link and sending me like abuse. It was pretty bad. I had to deactivate Facebook for a while and stuff.
Unbelievable.
But like that really, like really, I had to really think about, I guess, my place in religion and like my relationship with religion. And I ended up coming out in a place where I was like, you know what, like I said before, I am enough for myself. My representation of my religion is enough for myself, and I am not going to let this ruin my relationship with religion, because just because the community is shit doesn't mean the religion is. And I really still am quite like spiritual and religious in that regard.
I was going to ask both of you, now that you've come to a place of acceptance, you can be whatever version of yourself and all your intersections. Do you think a lot of the hate that you get comes from jealousy, particularly from like older people in the community, where they feel like they've had to abide by the rules, and if they have immigrated there, they have to just like conform? So when they see the younger generation being able to express themselves in the ways that they want to, especially the ways that you both are, do you think it's a lot of jealousy? And I think it's also important for our listeners to understand. I will say this from like a social work lens. If any of you are listening and you're going into like psychology or doctors or medicine, the people that you will work with, just because they are connected to a community, it does not mean that they are supportive, particularly as women. You can't assume what your client wants, what your friend wants. Most communities, I'll speak from my own experience, the Sikh community and a lot of the Punjabi community, it's mainly male leadership. They're not supportive of women. They're not supportive of abused women, let alone anybody who is
Yes.
progressive.
Yep.
Hello, ding, ding, ding. If you are going into professions such as helping roles, you cannot assume that a community is there for somebody, because it hasn't been for any of us. Yeah, where do you think that hate really comes from? Do you think it's jealousy? Why do you think our communities are the way that they are? Go for your life.
Maybe I just haven't spent enough time thinking about it, but I don't know whether it's jealousy, at least with my community. I think it's just there's a mixture of confusion between the two, like between the generations, a lot of like misunderstanding with experiences and comparison of the older generation's experiences and hardships and everything, and then we've got our experiences of struggles, hardships, and there's similarities and there's big differences, and that's where a lot of like conflicts come in. Parents will say, oh, well, you didn't have to do this in terms of getting food, or you didn't have to struggle doing like lots of farm work, or you didn't have to like go through several different types of wars. And then when you describe your own experiences, or like you try to like reach out for support for something, it's like you're kind of invalidated for like the experiences that you have.
I feel like, I mean, maybe when you get older and you become a bit more like, okay, maybe they felt like they could blah, blah, blah. But I really like had a lot of resentment growing up, just thinking like, you guys left us. You guys knew. How could you guys have dinner with us every 2 weeks, knowing what we were going through, and like not like step in? Like, and so I really understand like having like complex relationships with like your culture. Because like, I mean, I'm Pakistani, and there's like lots and lots and lots of domestic violence and misogyny in Pakistani community. My grandma, she passed away recently, but like growing up, I spent a lot of time with her, and she actually used to run like a support network for domestic violence victims. So there were lots of like Pakistani migrant women that would come here and escape their husbands, and they would be alone in Australia with no support network, no family, and no money. And there were lots of really big issues with like docs taking away these poor mothers' kids, but it's not their fault they're in this situation. Like they either they stay with their husband and potentially lose their kids to abuse, or they leave their husband and potentially leave their kids because of poverty. And it's just it's so messed up. And she like used to run with a lot of support, try and get these women housing and food and like clothes and stuff. And it's just like, I think her work really maybe helped me a little bit, because it's really easy to see your entire culture as like problematic, and then you see like an individual who is from your culture come out here and do like amazing things to support victims of violence, and you're like, you know what, there are just as many good people as bad people, and there are just as many supportive people. But I think like for us, a lot of it came from like misogyny, and it came from men, because like, and that's what you were saying about jealousy between women. I think yes, but to a lesser extent. Like I think like gossipy older aunties that make it hard for you. I reckon that's probably something to do with like they're unhappy in the place that they have in life. They're unhappy about the limited control they have over their lives because their husband's a misogynistic piece of shit. So like they're unhappy, they're miserable, they're maybe not very self-aware about why they're miserable. And a really good outlet is to make the younger generation feel bad because it's offloading their own like trauma. A weird control thing where they're like seeing you go out there and do everything yourself and find your own partner and find your own job. And there's a little bit of like anxiety around the loss of control over you that I think can come with some men when you start to lose control over these women who are going out and finding men from outside the culture and like doing all these things that are from outside the culture, quote unquote. I mean, I am from the culture, so anything I do is from the culture, just by
Thank
virtue
you
of being
very
Exactly.
much.
I think a lot of it's from men in the community. I think they really cause most of the fucking problems that women of color face come from men in the community who want to exert control over us. And then when we deviate from the path that we've been given to being good little brown girls or whatever, like then trouble starts. And then I think a lot of women enables that through their own feelings of loss of control.
Just because we're talking about, you know, friendships and family and romance and our community, how do you both find happiness within your relationships, your close friends, like how, or your close people around you? How do you find happiness between them?
Look, I will be honest. I think I actually find most of my happiness in my relationship with my partner, which I know is like somewhat of a like a lame answer, maybe a little bit
No.
like I feel like there's a bit of a stigma around like finding love with your partner because there's so much like self-love and be your own love and love
Yeah.
yourself before you love others. But I didn't love myself when I started dating my partner. I didn't. And I feel like it's maybe a little bit looked down upon. There's a lot of ideas that are sold to us about like you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else and you have to be your own source of happiness and stuff. And like that's just not true for me. Like the
Nobody will
truth
ever
is,
get there alone, you know?
yeah, exactly. And like for me, my biggest source of happiness is definitely my relationship with my partner. Because we have such a wholesome relationship and I think he's really uplifting for me, probably my biggest fan and biggest supporter, which I need. I need that. Like, and for me, like if we're going to talk about close friends and like relationships and stuff, like the happiness I find is through the validation, the reminder that I deserve good things, that I deserve love, that I deserve happiness, and that I don't have to be perfect 24/7 to deserve those things. I'm allowed to not be good at things. I'm allowed to fail. I'm allowed to be, a bit flaky as a friend sometimes. I'm allowed to be a bit shit sometimes. And like that doesn't negate my deserving for like love. And also just like, I mean, the pure joy that just comes with like being with like your friends or your partner and like we're just having a good time, being around people that I love who validate me and I think really like act as a buffer between me and my own self-criticism. Like I love being with my friends who make me forget my stresses and we just have fun hanging out. I have like mad imposter syndrome where I just like constantly think that I don't deserve good things and that I'm not working hard enough and that my friends maybe they don't act like I'm not with my friends for like one day and I'm like, oh my god, maybe they don't actually like me. Like and so for me, like with my friends and close family, it's like they're constantly reminding me like how much I'm worth, and that is happiness for me because that is something I really, really, really need. Cute, wholesome, loving relationships with people that make you feel good, right?
The first thing you have to do is to be honest with people, even if you don't love yourself yet. Maybe try to drop the performative. If you can just truly be yourself, I think that's really, really beautiful. And I think that's how I find happiness. I just do a lot of like silly things and I need people to just be like, I vibe with you. One of my favorite stories about how I met a friend, me and my friend, we were working in a call center together and I wanted to get them all to like me. So I brought them over to my house and made them a lot of food and drank a lot of wine. But because the food was taking so long to make, I ended up drinking like almost a whole bottle of wine, which is not great to like start off with. And then they come and then we're all drinking, having a good time, but like we haven't really gotten to know each other yet. Somehow I was like, hey guys, I can rap. No, I cannot. let's not let's not do that. I could have rapped about anything. The dinner, how lovely it is to have people around, a wholesome rap. Instead, I was like, hey, just give me a beat. So I grab my personal diary and then I start rapping about my feelings. And I have stood up on the table at this point. Usually afterwards, I would be like, oh God, I really blew it then. But I was still like, I think I hosted a good time. Maybe you shouldn't have stood on the table and rapped about your feelings, but hopefully that was okay. Yeah, one of them is still one of my friends today. He was like, I just remember thinking, like, I can fuck with Inez. I can keep her around. She's like very open. I just need to be around people where I don't feel like I have to perform and that I can stand on tables and rap about my feelings and get a little tipsy, and it's all good. Similar to what you were saying, I just really want people to stand up for me. I think a lot of that is just because my inner child and just me as a person has been let down a lot in really monumental, destructive ways. And yeah, I was in therapy, and then we had to do the tell us your whole life bit. Yeah, she was like, a constant theme that I see, Inez, is that people let you down a lot. Nobody had ever said that to me before. I haven't heard like, it's not your fault in a really long time. But yeah, I just want people that will stand up for me.
Yeah, well, it's about more than just joy. It's about support. It's
Yeah,
about protection.
Exactly.
It's like knowing that the people around you are there for you, not just when you're a good time, but also when you like need them.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I think
Mm.
there was an instance that really like not scarred me. Well, yes, it did. That was a lie. It did. My last relationship, we like brought our like groups together, like our friends together, and became like a bit of a group. Towards the end of that relationship, I was like, something is just not right here. So I broke up with him. I was like, like I didn't even know what was going on, but I was like, you don't make me happy. This is toxic. And in the breakup, he was so mean. But I was like, for somebody that like wanted to be with me, he just like took the breakup really easily. And I was just really confused. I just want to give like that Inez a hug and just be like, it's okay. But I remember talking to his friends, and we were all a group, and they watched me rip my hair out thinking about what's going on. This doesn't really make sense. I'm trying to make peace with it, but like something in my heart is just telling me something's not right here. For months they allowed that to happen, and then one of my friends, I'm glad that she told me, but she was like, I have to tell you something. The reason why it doesn't make sense is because your partner has cheated on you. And I was like, when? And it was months ago. So
oh
an
my God,
entire friend group
knew
and did not
I
say
can't believe
anything.
that.
For so long, I have, got really upset with people because I am like, I just have really high expectations for my friends, and I just expect everybody to like act the way that I do, and that's really unfair. But then after that, I was like, I would never do this. I would never do this to somebody I actually cared about. And
Exactly. No, for
Yeah.
real.
and like people tried to justify it. They're like, it wasn't my place. And I was like, it wasn't your place. You don't care about me. And like I hate that like this still is upsetting to me. Like I am not, it's not like I like wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh my God, like everything is horrible. But it's a really horrible thing to happen, to have, you just feel like
Well, it's
embarrassed.
traumatic.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just traumatic.
I don't
Like it would
think that
ruin your
like,
perceptions of friendships.
yeah,
Like
I don't,
Mm.
it's not that I think that like any of it was my fault. I'm very confident. I was a kind, good girlfriend to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
I had a lot of intergenerational trauma that I was working through. I didn't really know myself, so I was just a little bit all over the place, but I was still worthy of love, and I gave a lot of love. And then, to have all of that disrespected, have all my friends know too. It was so strange though, because I also said like during our relationship, I was like, we can explore like an open relationship if we want to. That's fine, but let's just talk about it. I was like,
well, he
but
could have slept with somebody
Yeah.
with your permission, even if it was an
Exactly.
open relationship.
Exactly.
all I
But you know
wanted was
what?
open communication. That was all.
But you know what? He probably had no interest in it being an ethical form of dating
Yeah.
somebody else. Like that is really, really sad. I can't even imagine being in your situation of finding out that like everybody knew. And you know what? Your therapist is right. People let you the fuck down because that should not have
Mm.
happened. And that is like your friends are just shit friends because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
should not have
Exactly.
happened. And I mean, I
Fuck
feel
all of you if you're listening. Fuck all of you so hard.
No,
I hated being
seriously.
your friend. You were people that did not give a shit about me. Good riddance.
Yeah, say it, Inez, because like it's true. Like,
Mm.
I mean,
They're
I
not
feel you
listening to
because I was
this, but it's
even
fine. No,
Oof,
thank you.
get him. But it's just like no, I feel you because like that
Salty.
was how I felt like with my family, like knowing that we were being like fucking abused, and like I
Yeah.
was just like, how can you guys just like not do anything? And I remember I was talking to my partner, like it took me a really long time to open up to him about like a lot of my traumas because I just felt like really ashamed about and like embarrassed and like guilty about things that had happened to me because I'd internalized a lot of it and felt like everything was my fault. And like I cannot explain like because I don't talk to anybody about my feelings. I really should see a therapist. I haven't done that yet, but like
I'll get you mine. She's great.
I internalized like everything, right? And then like it was one day where I don't know, things were just coming out, and I was just like talking to him, and like I was a bit of a mess, and he was just like so confused, and he was like, none of this is your fault. Like you're so angry at yourself, but none of this is your fault. And I just cried. Like I just sobbed hysterically for like the next hour because nobody had ever really like said that to me. Like nobody had ever really like just like looked me in the eye and been like, all of this bad things have just happened to you, but and that's really shit, but like you didn't do anything for those things to happen to you, and it's you did the best you could in bad situations. Like you responded in the only way you knew in situations that were out of your control, and none of your responses are ever going to be bad when they're like survivalist responses that you had to do. Bro, I was sobbing like a baby. I had never been validated like that before, and it was just like so it meant so much to me to just like have someone that I'd love and trust be like, this is not your fault. Because I feel like I always feel like everything is my fault. And no matter what happens to me, no matter how completely unrelated to my behavior it is, I just feel like it's my fault. And, you know, last year with like the Paragon Hotel stuff, and then like growing up in an abusive family, and then other really problematic friendships and relationships that I had, there was this common denominator of like me getting hurt in some way and everybody attacking me for it. Like, you know, with the Paragon Hotel thing, everybody telling me it was your fault. Why were you even there? Like you deserved for this bad thing to happen to you because you put yourself in that situation by even being there and giving that like that opportunity, well, giving a rise to the opportunity, right? And like I feel like I just am so used to hearing that and internalizing that and always feeling like I've done something to deserve abuse, that like to have somebody just be like, nothing is your fault and you are doing the best you can and the best you can will always be enough. I was a mess. I was a fucking mess. So I really like I feel you, Inez. I feel you. Like it's so hard when you just let down all the time because you start to think that you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, a huge part of happiness is probably just like hearing that from loved ones that like no, and like having people that you respect the opinion and advice of to give you that and tell you what you need to hear and just validate you. Like validation from like an important and close source is just like priceless. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you,
Yeah.
Angelica? How are your family, your friends, your romance? How's it all going?
I have so many feels, so much I relate to, seriously, with both of you, and want to say, like, you know, that betrayal of your friends. If anyone is listening and you know that you are those type of people right now, don't be in don't be what those friends did.
Fuck up. Step the
please.
fuck up.
Because it is seriously traumatic to go
It's
through
awful.
that type of shit. It's awful, it's disgusting. And if you have the power to actually not have someone feel that, then step up and actually enact that.
The cheating obviously does hurt, but what hurts more is the embarrassment of it all. The embarrassment that everybody knew, because then I could have at least dealt with the cheating. I could have like processed my emotions. But to have all your friends know, if you, as Angelica said, if you are in that situation and there is an Inez in your group that is being cheated on, or you know, they'll be hurt for a little bit, but you'll save them a lot of like honestly shame and embarrassment. They deserve some semblance of closure, you know?
I resonate a lot with what you were saying, your relationship, because that's how me and my boyfriend are. It's been quite a journey. Like I honestly never thought I would be in that position. Had no desire for relationships whatsoever to exist in my life. And then this happened. I get so much happiness and joy from that relationship, from my relationship, because the journey that both of us have gone through, I also recognize that I needed someone in my life who would be able to, you know, say those positive things, but also learn alongside me. I just appreciate like him and being able to be vulnerable. I always want to be that person who can care for my friends, but you're not going to see me open up because I can't. I struggle to do it. It's the most uncomfortable feeling.
Terrifying.
It's terrifying.
The fear of like rejection when you open up is the worst thing in the world. Yeah.
Exactly. Like rejection, feeling invalidated, like everything to do with that. Like it's even now, like sometimes I think I've said this to Inez before, I know I'm meant to be the one who should, you know, call and say like, hey, like, you know, how I'm going and like be able to do that. But I just like, I still have that struggle of being able to just tell people and my closest friends, like just how I am, like, or just because I also, I feel like society has also made me feel like my experiences and feelings aren't as valid to bring up. People are more important. don't be a burden to others. And so that's what I was going into this relationship feeling like. Everything that I say, or like if he sees the things that's happening in my home, he's going to like, I don't want to be any sort of burden like onto anyone. Like
Yes, I think the key word is burden there.
Yeah,
for
big burden.
sure.
yeah. And it's just like the first year of the relationship was me trying to break that feeling that I had internalized down. And I still feel that, like, you know, not as much so, but this relationship has definitely like been just something that's always so amazing. And it's just crazy to think like at least where I am with that, like, and where we are. I always feel weird when I say this, but it's like my first proper relationship or first actual relationship, really. I've never really had one.
Yeah, Mitch is my first boyfriend. It's my
Yeah,
first
exactly. First
relationship.
boyfriend. Yeah. So it's like
Oh, so cute.
I just didn't know what to expect with this. The other biggest source of my happiness is my family, and then close friends as well. And I wanted to make sure that how my boyfriend was, like I said to him when I met him, like, and we started to talk more and like, you know, date and everything. Like I said, like, if you don't click with my family, I honestly don't think it'll work. Someone has to fit in with that, with us. Otherwise it's just not going to be. And the biggest thing as well was my little brother. Like I'm really conscious of how people are with people who have different disabilities. And it's like, if you are someone who is very ableist, very, very much ableist, like, no, that it's just not going to be a thing. Like I can't do it. My boyfriend is more of a best friend with my little brother than he is with me.
Yeah,
and
cute.
that, yeah, like
That's
that's
so sweet.
like that is where I get so much happiness from. And like my mom, and just like her being able to function with everything that's constantly hitting at her, like I just get so much happiness that she's just here with me, really. And then I have my friends, close friends, you know, like a lot of how I've been able to get through circumstances in life is because I've just had friends to just that are just existing within my, like, you know, and that I just trust. And even though I don't open up to them, just the fact that they're vulnerable with me and they trust me, and like we you know, do our like whack stuff together, like it's just, or like, you know, even, you know, and as an I starting this podcast, like just the fact that we, you know, we can do these things, like having, you know, close friends that are just respecting of just my different experiences in life, even if I haven't shared everything, they're just willing to still be my friends. Like that to me is big source of happiness.
Okay, so just shifting gears a little bit, I also want to speak about how can we be happy under capitalism and in such an individualistic society? So what do you think, Celia?
Look, I don't know if true happiness, I mean, we can debate what that means for hours, but I
Yeah.
don't know if true happiness is 100% achievable under capitalism. I think when we live in a world where you could lose your status in society at any given moment, you know, if we're going to talk about happiness and stability under capitalism, you're never 100% stable under capitalism. When your worth is always going to be linked to your monetary value, your productivity, your work, things that you can lose at any given moment. If you're in a car accident and then you lose, you know, maybe you become paralyzed, certain parts of you, and then like you lose your job because of that. Like so many things can happen that you can just lose your stability in. So I don't know how much happiness is 100% possible under capitalism. I think you can get pretty close through loving relationships, through a fulfilling like family life. We can get pretty close. But I think until we live in a society that values humans and thinks they're worth more than like their productivity, I don't know how much we're ever going to become like truly happy.
Earlier when I was saying, you know, why do we have to earn a living? It should just be granted to
Exactly.
us. I think we can get as close as we can possibly get, but realistically, if you don't have stability, you can have happiness. I mean, we can debate whether or not you can be experiencing poverty and still be happy. I think you can, but not in the way that the privileged can. I feel like you can be happy when your stability is shaken, but that happiness feels like survival. When privilege experience happiness, it's joy. Like maybe you find a lot of joy and happiness in your job, which is wonderful. But don't think for a goddamn second that your employer wouldn't replace you if they found somebody cheaper and, you know, more efficient. Nobody gives a shit about loyalty.
Exactly.
Your job doesn't give a shit about you. They pretend that they do, but they don't. And once you just accept that life is inherently meaningless, but you can make all the meaningful parts worth it. And it doesn't have to be your job. It can be, as you said, your family, your romance, yourself. Find joy in lots of different avenues throughout your life. At the end of the day, nobody is going to be on their deathbed and being like, I wish I had made more money. Because I've read a lot about palliative care. The main thing that people say when they are on their deathbed is, I wish I hadn't worked so much. I wish I'd made more
Yeah.
time for my friends. I feel like that just says it all, you know?
I feel like I don't even have to say anymore because you guys just articulated what my brain was like trying to like piece together. piece together. Yeah, happiness comes from a variety of things. I don't think you can be like you guys said, you can get close to somewhat being happy like in a capitalist society, but like at the end of the day, like I feel like your happiness cannot just come solely from your job and your career, and like you've got to get into this industry, you've got to get into this job, this position because of the money and everything like that. And even like, and I'm saying that from here, but in Nigeria itself, it's the same thing. People to move out of the country to be able to find some sort of happiness and start to create a career outside of the country, and because they don't see that you can have full happiness in Nigeria, that's just where it becomes like so problematic. If you cannot see that you can find happiness in that country, there's just so much to it than just like how much you earn. When I just see like some parents and families push their kids to like leave the country, and then you have the diaspora wanting to desperately come back to the country because they just like, we don't want to be here, like this society is not for us. There's so many of us saying that we want to come back because we just can't, this society, we don't want to be here. And then you get like people saying, no, stay there, it's better. That's just not where happiness can come from. And I think because we are seeing so many people wanting to go back and rebuild and build up their communities there, it says a lot about where people are finding their joy and happiness. They want to be able to get out of this system that says like you've got to earn everything, and then or you've got to earn this, you've got to earn that, like that's where and then when you achieve that, that's when you've got like happiness and joy, and you can be content. That can be done back on the motherland. So it doesn't have to be done like in the US, UK, Australia, all those those places,
I think this like girl boss hustle culture, yes, getting an amazing job and career will make you happy. I mean, I just think, does no one ever think like how like convenient that is? Like when you've got a capitalist society being like, guys, work is gonna make you happy. Like, are we not thinking like, okay, but a boss telling you that work is gonna make you happy is like literally the most convenient thing in the world for them, right? Like why is this limited critical thinking around like hustle culture and boss culture? Because the only person benefiting from you making your career your life is your boss.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
It's so convenient for like to tell the working class that they'll be happy if they work their asses off. We do need money to survive, and I'm not going to discount that. And I totally understand obsessing over finances because I do that. Like the truth is that fear is exactly how we're kept in check.
I also wanted to add, I feel like a lot of people will say, yeah, as both of you have said, if you work really hard, you'll get to happiness. But a lot of the time, those happiness markers are like material successes, like a job and a car, etc. And, you just have to work hard and you'll be happy. But the people that are experiencing poverty that I know are some of the hardest working people.
Exactly.
Yes. Three jobs. And
yes, exactly.
They're not working hard. Fuck you, they're not working hard. Of course they're working hard. They're just up against, capitalism and racism together. And then there's this weight of neoliberalism that it's like you as an individual can succeed alone, and if you fail, then it's completely your fault. And that's not true. And people put the value of somebody on how much they can work, how much they can hustle. Girl boss. And that's not true. Your value lies in so much outside of that. And like society and capitalism will put a number on how much you are worth, how much money you are deserving of, what class, what suburb you can live in. And that's not where your value lies at all. People think that like, you get a home and you're happy, but like, okay, you spend ages chasing that one thing that you want and then you get it. Will you still be happy? Fuck no. You'll find new things to complain about. Do you know a single like rich person that is like completely happy? No, they just find more problems to be unhappy about. Look, Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the whole world, if metrics of money and success and merit are supposed to be how happy you can be under capitalism, that dude is divorced. Like, I don't understand like where you get that.
Happiest, right?
Exactly. It's like you can't put your value of a human being in how much they can work, how much money they provide to their labor market, because there's so much stuff that's stacked up against them. Just stepping outside of that, I just want to find like places where you can find happiness with the earth that you are living in? I know that there are systems that we all live under, but do you find yourself wanting to experience happiness with the earth that you live on, like in terms of spirituality or
Mm.
nature? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think about the climate like at least like 80 times a day.
Yeah.
It is consistently on my mind from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to sleep, especially now that we are coming into the fire season again. Literally all I think about is climate change and
Yeah.
bushfires
Yeah.
and climate
Yeah.
anxiety. It's a big part of what doesn't make me happy because I am so scared for the environment. I grew up as one of those kids. I was like obsessed with nature. I wanted to be like a zoologist or a vet or
Cute.
explorer or
Aw.
something. And I like read every single nature book you could think. I don't think I read a fiction book until I was like 15 because I was constantly reading like nature books about like dinosaurs and spiders and
Oh, that's
snakes
so
and I
cute.
don't know. Like I just really cared about the environment and it meant a lot to me and it still means a lot to me. And then to like grow up and then start to learn about how much we're not we as an us, but how like humans are destroying the planet, how corporations in
Corporations,
particular,
yeah.
not the everyday human, but how corporations are just destroying this earth that otherwise would be fine. Like we are existing in the earth fine. It's like 100 corporations. There's 100 people,
Less.
100 CEO less that are ruining the entire planet.
Yeah.
And that is a huge source of sadness and anxiety for me because it's like I would be happy if we actually started to give a shit about like the planet. Like, why can't we all just have a revolution like right now and just destroy these corporations? I used to get a lot of happiness from the environment and from the
Mhm.
planet. I used to really get so much. I would be so happy just like exploring in the forest all day and like just like out with my family at parks, things. And that was like my joy. But now it's my sadness because like all I can do is look at it and know that it's temporary and know that I feel so like, I don't know, I feel so helpless about it.
Like I find happiness in nature, I find happiness in the climate, and that's why when I said like I want to go back to like Africa and like actually explore the different places, it's mainly because I want to just experience the climate and environment there, and I like not just the people but like the nature.
Yeah.
I think back to the stories that my mum would tell me about all these different plants, these herbs, these different animals that exist that were there, that after colonization, like they like deliberately burnt all like the medicinal things. They like
Mm.
there's so many things do not exist. Like I think she said like near like 85% of things that we had that were like unique to Nigeria were completely gone and destroyed because like during like that colonization time, like they knew what they were doing. I saw like the pain, like even when my mom would tell me these things, I can actually see like there is that anxiety and that pain in the fact that these things are lost and these things are
Mm.
gone. When I see that anxiety and that sorrow that she has, I'm like, like you guys get it. Like, it's you lost something. You lost that nature. That's something so distinct and special, like to
Mm.
this earth, like that connects us with just the universe. Like that is really, really sad. And I just don't want to
Mm.
have that same feeling, but I'm constantly anxious about our environment. I'm constantly anxious about our air, the quality, how it's impacting people who are more vulnerable. I'm also conscious of like losing these things that are unique to Australia, which comes back to like a lot of conflicts even that I have with like religion and like spirituality that I have with that, because I feel like a lot of emotional connection and spirituality with the earth and keeping the earth like healthy and clean, and just to see like people who supposedly like talk about like, oh my God made the earth and it was beautiful. I'm like, yeah, cool, but like you don't even give a shit like about like the earth like at this
Yeah.
stage right now. Like,
Yeah.
I
No,
mean, like
exactly.
it's just, and then like like it blows my mind like the amount of like people in my faith who have been against like climate protests and climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely echo everything that you both have said. But one thing I wanted to add, I think I was very much like, I care about myself and my existence
Mm.
and just the people around me. And I felt like I was just always, obviously the world revolves around me because it's my world. Who else would it revolve around? Um, People say the world doesn't revolve around you. I'm like, yeah, everybody's world does. So like, that's a stupid
Yeah,
saying. And I think
everybody is the center of their world. Like you see the world through
exactly,
your
Yeah.
own eyes. Like that
yeah,
makes sense.
exactly. Caring more about spirituality and being more in love with nature definitely helped me relieve a lot of my anxiety. I obviously have really bad climate anxiety, but I think just knowing how small you are can help sometimes, not always. Like being able to like traveling and experiencing so much. I'm like, there are so many people that I haven't met, and there is all this music I haven't listened to, and all these books I haven't read, and all these cities I've never had a coffee in. And all of
Yeah.
that is really like, all of that is really exciting. Just to know that the world is just so big and there's so much like love and beauty out there is really really nice. But yeah, I think that's all I would add. Okay, so just to wrap up, I just want to go around and ask, what is one thing that is gonna make you happy today, boost your happiness?
I'm gonna get dinner with one of my high school friends today, and I love her. She is a queen. I love her so much, and I'm so
Oh,
excited. I haven't seen her in a while either, so we're gonna get dinner tonight. And I'm like, yes.
There's a few things, but I think the one thing in particular that's going to make me happy today is my little brother just learned how to play Snap. And so I'm actually really looking forward to playing Snap with him.
That's so
Maybe
cute.
buying
Yeah.
ice cream later. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a walk through the bush, and then I haven't decided what I'm going to make for dinner, but I have a ritual. I get a glass of wine, I put on some jazz. Oh, it's a grand old time. I feel like a
Yes.
chef. But yeah, I just want to thank Soaliha for being here today. It really meant a lot to us, and me and Angelica have definitely enjoyed our conversation, and it's
Mhm.
really sweet. Angelica was saying before how strange it is that, you know, we all come from very different communities, but share so many of the same experiences. And as disheartening as that is, it is really lovely to know that we're not alone, you know?
Yeah,
So
no,
thank you for your
exactly.
time.
No, I really enjoyed chatting to you guys. It honestly just felt like I was just having a little nice night with friends, having a little wholesome sleepover or something, just having a
Yeah.
little chat, have my little cup of tea. Like it's really nice because you're so right. And I think we really need more connections and friendships and love between like different women of color, because like
Yeah.
the truth is we do have really universal experiences between each other, and we're the only people that understand each other to that extent. And there needs to be more love and support and connections between other women of color, I think. So I love this for us. I love this for us.
Yes.
Amazing. Yep.
it.
So please go follow Soaliha's Instagram. What is it again? Soaliha Official.
Soaliha Official.
Amazing.
And have a listen to my podcast. I'm gonna
Yes.
plug an
Yes.
episode, to be honest, because we just did last week we did an episode on internalized racism, and we just released an episode today about interracial dating that was inspired by you guys. Actually, I plug you guys on my podcast.
Oh my god,
because
that's so
Oh,
sweet.
thank
your
you.
episode on interracial dating really inspired me, and so we did one, and we actually talk a lot about the things you said.
That's so sweet. Thank
that's
you.
amazing. Thank you.
Oh my god. Yeah, so thank you all for listening today, and please share this episode because it's beautiful and it's going to make everybody's heart all warm and fuzzy. So let everybody hear it. Sing it from the rooftops, you know? Frolic, as I like to say. But thank you so much. We all hope you have a great day and do something that makes you happy. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.